Hi everyone, and welcome to today's video. This is the first in a little series I'm going to start of pens in my collection. This isn't necessarily going to be what I have inked up at any particular time series. I want to sort of cycle through my collection, show what I have, show from the lower priced end through to some of the more expensive pens that I own, and really just sort of what takes my fancy on any particular day. So I thought I'd start with these 5 pens, seeing as though they're 5 that I quite like and use sort of regularly. They're not in any particular order in terms of favourites or whatever, or not even in price order, just what as they come out, which starts with the Wingsung 3003, which is a pen modelled off the Pilot Prera, but just a little bit bigger, which I quite like, and has a very nice sort of fine nib on it. Then I've got the Pilot Metropolitan here, which also has a fine nib, which I'm not a huge fan of the Pilot fines. I find them to be just a little bit too toothy for my taste, but still a nice writer. Then we've got the Platinum Century 3776 Chartres Blue, which is a beautiful pen, and I have a broad nib on that. A Franklin-Christoph Model 2, which probably is one of my absolute favourite pens. And then the Faber-Castell Loom. Now, this is a Loom hack pen, if you will. I've taken the cap from the new olive green finish and the barrel from what was an orange Loom with a broad nib, and sort of put them all together to create what I think is probably the ultimate Loom pen. So, and that's got a broad nib. So I'll just do a quick writing sample with each of them and show you what it's all about. So we start with the Wingsung 3003, and this is with Diamine Twilight. Now, why do I like this pen? Well, it's incredibly well priced. These come in at less than $3 Australian, including postage from China. I bought a bunch of them at once after trying one and liking it. And this is sort of in a way, this is probably one of my beat around pens. It sort of sits in the front of my notebook, and if it gets broken or lost, then I'm not really so fussed. It writes consistently and reliably, and yeah, it's just a really good all-round writer, and at that price, it's hard to beat, really, let's be honest. Next we have the Pilot Metropolitan. Once again, a fine nib. I can't write. I should have said it. This is labelled as an extra fine. This Pilot Metropolitan is inked with Pelikan Edelstein, the 2018 ink Olivine. Not a massive fan of this ink. It writes quite dry, and in a fine nib like this, it just doesn't quite do it for me. But it's a nice. I've got this ink in a number of different nibs to sort of see what it's like, pending a possible review of the ink in a couple of just over a month. And so to put it in a fine nib like this that does write relatively dry and sort of see what shading and what colour you actually get out of it, it's an interesting one. But the Pilot Metropolitan is such a great pen, and you'll see a few of these over the time. This is obviously the I think it's sort of like called the Bronze Lizard or something like that. They're a great pen. They're so affordable, and they are so widely available. And you've got a couple of decent nib options, and an all metal body, and a reliable name. They're a wonderful, wonderful pen, and which is why I've got several of them in my collection. Next we come to the Platinum Century 3776 Chartres Blue. Now, I adore this pen. They are probably some of my favourite pens, the actual body and the design and some of the finishes. I have 3 of them in my collection now, 3 different nibs. I've got the fine, the soft fine, and the broad. The broad is my favourite of the nibs. I find the fine to be just a little bit too fine for my taste, and being a left-handed writer, the soft fine is just a little bit sort of wasted in how I write. I'm sure I could get better at it, but I find broads to be really quite nice nibs, as you'll see with the fact that these 3 pens are all broad nibs. I've got this inked with Blackstone Barrier Reef Blue at the moment, a lovely sheening ink. We might see a bit of it on this rodeo paper here, but one of the things I really adore about this pen is the classic look of it. It's got a great shape, it's got great lines, and the nib is beautiful, and so this broad is incredibly smooth, and it's quite a wet writer, and they're not the cheapest pen, depending on where you get them from, whether you get them on the eBay market or whether you get them in store. The price can vary hugely, but it's really worth it. It was one of the first pens I got with a nice gold nib, and I think they're just great pens. Oops. It's funny how writing around a tripod can sort of put you off. I should know how to spell barrier reef blue, seeing as I'm Australian. The next pen is the Franklin-Christoph Model 2. This is a beautiful pen. It's the first Franklin-Christoph I bought. I originally bought it with a stub nib, but I changed I bought a broad nib. I just find it to be much more pleasant sort of writing experience. I love the fact that the threads are down here. They're out of the way. It's got nice lines. It's a beautiful size. It's a nice weight pen. It's beautifully balanced down towards the nib, which I adore. It's how I prefer my pens. And with this broad nib, it's just a joy to write with. I've currently got this inked with Krishna Yellow Valley, which is an ink that really surprised me. I literally bought it because I didn't have anything like it, and it is one of the most beautiful sheening, gorgeous inks, shading inks that I have ever used. You can see that pen just lays down a beautiful amount of ink. It's smooth, it's a joy to write with, and I think it's probably out of almost all the pens in my collection, this and the Franklin-Christoph 31 that I have are 2 of the best fits for my hand. It's just such a great size, and as I said, that balance just makes it a joy to write with. Final pen for today from my collection is the Faber-Castell Loom. As I said, I combined the parts of a couple of different pens, loom models, to make what I consider to be the ultimate loom. I think this is probably one of the pens that surprised me the most when I first got it. I actually got another model of it to start with, of course, because it's not necessarily the most beautiful pen, but there's something really attractive about it, and I really do love this olive green finish. It's one of the new finishes that they've come out with, and it's just really beautiful. I didn't know how much I would like olive greens until recently, and picked up a few inks and pens with this sort of colour, and it's just, I love it. A lot of people don't like things about the loom. The grip could be a bit slippery. I've never had a problem with it. And let's be honest, you're not paying a huge amount for these pens, and they've got some of the best nibs sort of on the market. That there's nothing fancy about them, but they're just so beautiful and smooth. This is the Faber-Castell Loom Broad. just look at the line that puts down. It's just absolutely stunning. This ink is Diamine Salamander. Great match for this pen. It's a beautiful sort of dark olive green, and just looks great on the page, and with a nib that writes like this, oh, could write with it all day. It's gorgeous and wet and smooth, and you know, it's a rigid nib. You're not going to get any sort of line variation. You can push a tiny bit out there, but you know, really it's just a sweet, broad, wet, gorgeously wet nib, and an absolute joy to write with. And that's why the Loom is one of my favourite pen models, and why this particular Loom is right up there with my favourite pens. And for the price, you know, you're paying not, you know, it's around the same price as Alarmy All-Star, and so you're not paying a huge amount for this pen, and it just writes so beautifully. So yeah, those three broads are just all great writers, and of course, with the exception of the fine Metropolitan, which isn't my favourite, and particularly with that sort of drier ink, even the Wingsung there with the extra fine is a lovely smooth writer, nice little bit of feedback on the page, which I don't mind. So yeah, that's the first 5 pens you see from my collection. I'll do another one of these videos in a little while, and sort of maybe show you some pens that I've acquired since then, and pens that are in my collection that I really love writing with. Hope you found this video interesting. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notifications button to stay up to date with the videos that I produce. Please feel free to drop me any questions, or anything you sort of want me to talk about or look at here. You can do that either here on YouTube or at any of the social media platforms linked below, or my email, which is linked below. In the meantime, enjoy your pens, enjoy writing, and I'll talk to you later.